All right, Larry Kruger here at Levi's Stadium for the Pig and a Pickle Krueg Show with a little 49er video as we recap everything that happened down here on a Tuesday as we had a chance to talk to 49ers assistant coaches today. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out there in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Call my friend Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264. He's also a great follow on Instagram at SharpCorners831 on Instagram. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the 49ers. We were down here today in Santa Clara. We had a chance to talk to a number of the assistant coaches. We started off talking to Chris Forrester. One of the things that really stood out is that Forrester loves what he saw in practice the other day from Austin Pleasance. He's like, man, this guy is really moving, and Pleasance looked fantastic. And he also liked what he saw from Connor Colby. And I mentioned to Chris that he seemed like he was coaching Colby and Pleasance hard. And he's like, yeah, because I see stuff in them. I see talent there. He said Connor Colby's got a chance to play. Austin Pleasance has a chance to play. And so he's going to coach these guys hard. And they can take hard coaching. He loves the speed that Austin Pleasance is playing with. He was like almost shocked at how fast. He's like, this guy's a giant who can really move. They signed him last year and they liked him, but now they love him. And Chris says they love him. They also cut today Nicholas Petit-Frere. I joked the other day that Nicholas Petit-Frere's time with the 49ers was going to be a petite amount of time. And sure enough, it was. I mean, he had a horrible practice the other day. Didn't look healthy, didn't look right. Today they cut him. And Austin Pleasance, on the other hand, looks fantastic. And Connor Colby looks good, too. Had a chance to talk to Mick Lombardi, and he said this time in June is vitally important for coaches to get away because they do spend so many hours grinding on football the rest of the year, that it's really important that they invest time in their family in this month of June. Also had a chance to talk to Bobby T today, and we talked about a number of guys. I asked him why Jordan James is considered a great scheme fit, and he says it's too early. They like what they see, but it's too early to really know. He said with the running backs, you don't really get a feel until they put the pads on. We talked a little bit about Isaac Guerendo. He said Guerendo has a great attitude, that he really wants to get better, that he wants to be coached. He also called him a natural receiver. His hands are really good. And he said, the sky is the limit for Isaac Guerendo. And there's no question, Guerendo has a ton of talent. We also talked about Corey Kiner. And I mentioned to Bobby T that I thought his contact balance was incredible, and he said he agreed. He says his contact balance and his positive attitude really stand out. Bobby T said that you're not going to get a real good feel for the running backs until and how tough they are until the pads come on. Obviously, that's not going to happen until this summer. I asked him about what's the key to longevity in coaching, and he's like, never be comfortable, always work. I asked him about Christian McCaffrey. He says, I'm really happy with where CMC is. He says, I let Christian be Christian. So Bobby T seems really comfortable with where McCaffrey is conditioning-wise. I asked him about, how he takes a lot of time to get to know the draft prospects. And he's like, hey, man, if they're going to ask my opinion on these guys, I got to know what I'm talking about. And so I got to know the person. So I spend the time to try to get to know these guys in the springtime because it's all part of the process of drafting the right guys and knowing the people. And he's like, you got to know the person. And so he takes time in the springtime to get to know some of the draft prospects. I asked him, what's the key to longevity in the NFL? And he said, passion. He said he has tremendous passion for his job. He says he wants to get better every day. He wants to improve a little bit every day. But it's important, he says, to be passionate about what you do. I also asked him about Izzy Abanaconda and what he needs to do to get on the field. He said he just needs to be ready for his opportunity, keep grinding. He says it's not about size or speed, that it's about picking up the offense. And it's like when he gets an opportunity, he's going to have to be ready for it. And Abanaconda is going to be in camp this summer with the 49ers. Then after I talked to Bobby T, I talked to Johnny Holland, and Johnny Holland loves Nick Martin. And I said, what stands out about Nick Martin? He's like speed. Speed is what stands out. He's violent. He loves ball. He said he's a pretty impressive kid for sure. He's eager to learn. He said there's no doubt that Nick Martin is going to be a good player. He said at first, when he first got here, there was a little bit of drift in his game. He says all that drift has gone away. He takes coaching really well. He wants to get better. He's hanging around Fred, and he's just trying to be a sponge and soak it up. We talked a little bit about D. Winters with Johnny Holland, and he says D. Winters has improved a lot. In fact, he says he's our most improved linebacker this offseason. He says he's developing his voice as a leader. I also asked Johnny Holland about Chaz Surratt, and he said, man, I really like Chaz Surratt. He's super athletic. He's smart. He says he's a hitter. He plays smart. He plays with a lot of violence. He said he's been in the system before. He said he liked him at North Carolina in the draft process a couple years ago, so he's really excited about Chaz Surratt. And then I asked Johnny about Stone Blanton, and he really lit up. He said, man, the ball production in college stood out. He says he's a violent player. He's like, the ball production really stands out. He takes coaching really well. He said, we're really excited about Stone Blanton and what he brings to the table. So that's a guy to keep your eye on this summer, Stone Blanton. And he might be a guy for the 49ers. And then we had a long talk with Chris Kasarik. And I asked Chris, what do you think of the rookies? And he's like, I like all of them. He's like, I think they can all ascend. He really likes Bryce Huff. I said, what do you like about Bryce Huff? He says he wins his one-on-one battles off the edge, and his get-off is just tremendous. He was asked, why did Huff struggle last year? And he said, hey, look, there's a big difference between being in a two-point stance and coordinating the footwork and the steps compared to being in a 3 or 4 point stance. And he said he just didn't take to it. Not every guy is a fit for every scheme. A couple other notes today. Trent Williams is healthy and is in Santa Clara for OTAs. That's good news. The Niners signed Malik Knowles, a wide receiver who I believe played at K-State. They also cut Nicholas Petit-Frere as offensive tackle who struggled, and they put Trent Taylor on the injured reserve with a back injury. But we talked to, a lot about Bryce Huff and, with Chris Kasarik, and he's like, man, Bryce Huff is really, really good. And that's now an official trade. Huff passed his physical, so the Niners will send a 5th-round pick that could become a 4th-round pick to the Eagles for Bryce Huff. We talked about C.J. West. I mentioned to Chris how I thought C.J. West has really violent hands, and he's like, yeah, he says his hands are very advanced. He said there's, it's usually a veteran that has great hands, but he said C.J. West's hands are very, very advanced for a young guy. He talked about how the young guys, all of them, have a great attention to detail, and he talked about how Mykel Williams is getting better at working to the football in every single play. He said when he first got here, he would do what he would do, but he didn't work to the football as aggressively and chase plays down 20 yards down the field. He said in the last few days he's gotten a lot better at that. He now understands that he's got to chase everything down. He said he really liked Mykel because of his versatility, and he said he can play both inside and outside, kind of like an Arden Key or an Eric Armstead or a Charles Omenihu. Chris was asked about Robert Saleh's scheme and how it's evolved, and he says it's really more evolved on the back end than up front. He also talked more about Bryce Huff. He says Huff's a grinder. He's a worker. He's a self-made man in the NFL. He said this guy had to work for everything that he's had, and he adds greater flexibility. They can now play Mykel Williams inside more, so they really like what Huff brings to the table. About Alfred Collins, he said, man, he's picking up things quickly in meetings, but of course they haven't been able to see him on the field because of the injuries. I asked him about Teron Jackson, and he said, hey, man, this guy's quick and he's explosive. And he's got some twitch, and he's eager to get better. He loves football. He said they're really intrigued by Teron Jackson and what he may bring to the table. And then he said that, he really likes the toughness of Mykel Williams. He says he won't know until the pads come on, but he clearly loves the game. He's eager to learn. He's learning a lot from Nick Bosa. and they really like what they've seen from Mykel Williams throughout this process in the springtime. So there you go. There's a breakdown of pretty much everything that I heard about down here in Santa Clara. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueg Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krueg Show on YouTube.